Hi, and welcome to another pre-recorded class, candylandcrafts.com. My name is Susan from Chef Suze, and I'm here today to record the class for you to make this really cute graduation hat. Unfortunately, a lot of our seniors are very, very delayed, if at all, having graduations. So here's a way to make a little special treat for your graduate. It's made out of fondant, and it's got 3 mini cakes, and you can decorate it whatever colors. If you were to order your kit, you would receive 2 black satin ice fondants, 1 white, and gold, or you can even opt up to a different color, whatever the color of your school, your graduate's school colors are, as I did in this case with red. Instead of the gold, I used the red. So, and then just a little scroll on the side. Also, there is a little banner that you could put Quarantine 2020 or congratulations or your graduate's name, whatever you'd like on there. In addition to the satin ice that you can choose one of your secondary color, of course your third color actually, because you'll get the 2 blacks, the 1 white, and then the other color. And we have many different colors. Just go on candyland.com and you can pick out your color. You'll receive 3 mini cakes, buttercream, pastry bag, and a decorative board. So with that, really that's all you'll receive in the kit, but believe me, we're gonna work a lot with it, and we're gonna show you a lot of different techniques. The things that you will need, here's where a lot comes in. The things that'll definitely make your life a lot easier when you do this would be some powdered sugar. It's just a straight edge, so that's not necessary. One thing you will need would be, in order to do the cap of the graduation hat, is just a piece of cardstock. Now I did one that has white on one side because it's actually what's underneath, but it doesn't matter if you're not going to see it, not a big deal. But so just a 6x6 piece of cardstock that you can cut from anything. I'm sure we're receiving a lot of packing boxes these days. So a bowl and a spatula, a little bit of water, some vegetable shortening, sorry about that, a bowl and a spatula, so just to loosen up your buttercream. You'll need a ruler that you can also use the straight edge, so you don't need both. A bread knife that helps in carving the cake, because we will do some carving on this cake, so that helps with that. You can even use a small, as long as it's serrated. You could use a steak knife if you don't have the large bread knife. An offset spatula is helpful, but not necessary. You could use a butter knife if you don't have that. A paring knife is key. You'll use both sides, the sharp side and the dull side, so that would be necessary. A scissor, just to cut your pastry bag and cut open your fondant packages. A rolling pin is definitely necessary. Now you can either use a small one like this, or you can use a larger rolling pin. It's your choice. Something that is not necessary but helpful is good old-fashioned pizza cutter, because when you want to get around the edges of that dough, or you want to do the tassels, a lot of times this rolling pizza cutter is very helpful. So, and I think that is it. You just want to make sure that you have enough time and you can just relax and go ahead and do this. One thing I would suggest is that when you do any of the decorations, let me just pull this back so you can see it a little bit better. It's out of camera view. When you do any of your decorations, whoops, you want to try to keep them covered, because at one point we'll be doing the cake and putting it back and forth, and while the cake is being crumb coated and chilled, we'll be working on the decorations. Just make sure you have some plastic wrap so that you can cover them. My first attempt, I was good to go. I had the tassel and everything ready to go. I went to use it and it dried out too much and broke, so I had to make the tassel all over again. So hopefully you have fun, and congratulations to all those graduates out there. Please send us your pictures and your stories. Let us know if you have any questions on Candyland's Facebook or sales@candylandcrafts.com. You can email us or you can contact me directly. I'm Susan at chefsuse.com or just Chef Suse, S-U-S-E, on Facebook. So let me get the camera angle a little bit better and we'll get going. Thanks. We're going to get started by putting our buttercream in our pastry bag. We're going to fold over a nice size cuff on the bag. This helps keep your hand and your work area nice and clean, as well as keeping the bag clean so it doesn't slip in your hands. So we're just going to place that buttercream in there. We wanted to have a nice smooth stir on that without any air pockets. Just give it a jiggle down and fold up that cuff. You also want to just flatten it out a little bit just to make sure there are no air pockets stuck in there. Push down that buttercream a little bit. Tap out any air bags, twist it, and we're going to be good to go. We're going to take the cakes, the 3 different cakes, we're going to take a look at them and see which one looks better, has a nicer dome on the top, because we're going to use that dome to our advantage. The other one, as you can see, this one is a bit of a mess. We're just going to slice this off so it's nice and flat and even. I've already done the other one and placed it off center on the decorative cake board. So this way you can put your designs on the front of the board. I like using a pastry bag. We're just going to cut the tip off. It doesn't really matter how much, about an inch. But I like using a pastry bag to put the buttercream on. I get a nice even layer under each layer, and I just find it neater and cleaner to work with. But you can just use a bowl with an offset spatula or a spatula if you'd like. So we're just going to put the same amount, smooth it out. You want to make sure that you have a nice even layer. This way your cake stays nice and even the higher you get. You'll put the next one on. I like to flip it upside down so it's a flatter surface. Again, put more buttercream, the same amount. You don't want too much because you don't want it oozing out and creating bulges on the side. Now you're just going to take your, in this case, a 6x6 board. You just want it to look even and proportioned properly. So then you're going to take your serrated knife, I like to use a bread knife, and just take off a little bit more of the edge of that cake. So it's, again, even more of a dome. Just keep cleaning up as you go, and you save all that stuff, by the way. That makes great for cake pops. And then I'm also going to tilt the cap, the lid of the cap a little bit so it tilts up. So I'm just going to take out a small section of cake. You'll see when I put the cap of the top of the graduation cap on there, again, it'll sit up a little bit so you can put any other designs underneath, banners, or whatever you like. And then we are going to take our buttercream and just put a nice thin coating on this. This would be your crumb cake. And this is going to go into the refrigerator after you smooth. This doesn't have to be perfect by any stretch. You just want it to have a nice smooth finish on it, because again, as you layer, you want each layering nice and smooth, then your final product will be nice and smooth. So I use an offset spatula, but again, whatever you're comfortable with. You can even use a butter knife if you don't have an offset spatula. As soon as we get this nice and smooth, we're going to go ahead and put that in the refrigerator. This way it firms up. We put that in the refrigerator. Now we're going to take our surface and put a little bit of powdered sugar and our vegetable shortening. We're going to go ahead and cover that lid so that it dries a little bit. So you're going to take about a quarter, I took a little bit too much there, about a quarter of your black fondant. You want to make sure you knead it well. Now it's 2 of the packages, don't forget. And the black could be a little sticky, so you definitely want to make sure you have cornstarch or powdered sugar for this. And just really give it a nice knead. If it's too sticky, just add a little bit of that powdered sugar. Now we're going to roll it out, and you always, whenever you roll fondant, you want to roll from the center
out and continually pick up that fondant and move it so that it doesn't stick to your work surface. Put a little extra powdered sugar on there and just continue to roll it out. As you can see, it's getting a little too sticky. This is a combination of powdered sugar and cornstarch that I like to keep on hand. And again, the black, the more saturated the color, the softer the fondant. And I'm just going to roll it out so that it is nice and thin, probably about an eighth of an inch. And it's going to fit on that 6x6 cardboard cardstock. You just want to make sure, just every once in a while, take a look at it and see if it fits. And again, keep moving that fondant around. You will get some white on there from the powdered sugar, but just it brushes right off. So you can just keep going until the end. And we are almost there. Just stretch it out. Oh, again, you go from the center out. This way it stays nice and even. And we're just about there. We're going to take a look to see which is your smoother side. And you want that on the rougher side on the inside. I'm then going to take a little bit of the buttercream and use it as glue. So I'm just going to put it on the darker side of the cardstock. On mine, one side was white, one side was the brown. It doesn't really matter, whichever you prefer. You could even cover the entire thing if you like, but that would be quite a bit of fondant. It would be a little heavy, so that's why I went with just covering one side. You're going to place that down on top of your fondant. Make sure it's nice and centered. Then you're going to take a knife. You either use your paring knife or you can use a pizza cutter, and you just go around the edges. Make sure it doesn't pull too much at the end. And you just want it overlapping about an eighth of an inch. You just want a little bit showing. You could do more if you'd like, but again, you might get a thick, heavy border on that. You want to keep it as nice and thin as you can. Don't forget to wrap that up because we'll need it for the cake. It dries out very quickly, even though it is a little sticky. You don't want any little hard sections in there. If you do find any, definitely pull them out and discard them. Now you're just going to take your fondant and you're going to pull it up around the edge of the cardboard. You could use the back of your paring knife. That helps. You could use a little bit of the vegetable shortening to put on your fingers. This way you can handle it a little bit better. And then now here you see you do have a little bit of powder on it, but it just brushes right off. Just tighten up that edge, pull it under, so it's nice and neat. You could even take a straight edge and push it up against the side or your paring knife to make it nice and even. Flip it over and just tuck it down. Again, you won't see this. So you want to be somewhat neat, but you won't see it too much. But just play around with it until you get it how you like it. And then we are going to, what I usually do is I turn a shot glass upside down and I'll put it on that in order to just let it dry. We're going to put it off to the side. Our cake is now out of the refrigerator and you can touch it. It's not sticky anymore. So that was the crumb coat. Now you want to put another coating of buttercream. Again, you don't want it too thick. Here's where the pastry bag comes in handy again, where you can just pipe that on where you like it. If it's too thick, the fondant will start to slip and bulge, and you'll get a lot of air pockets in there. So you just want enough so it's a nice amount that when you are eating the cake, there's enough buttercream to cake ratio. This one you want to smooth very well because anything you do here will show under the fondant. Any little spots that you have, just go around and fill them in. Then we're going to be putting this back in the refrigerator while we work on the fondant. Just clean up the area around the board so that it's nice and clean and not sticky at all. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do some of the decorations. We're going to start with the tassel. And I'm doing a mixture of red and white on the tassel, but you can do whatever color you want. You'll receive gold, or you can opt for another color for your school color. This could be either a single color tassel, or I'm just showing you the option to do, sometimes there's more than one color. So I'm just taking a small piece of white, and I'm rolling it out, of course, on top of some powdered sugar. What's nice with the pizza cutter here is you can get nice thin strips on this, as you see. I'll use both. The paring knife, you don't have to trim the sides yet, you just want to get your little tassel strips. So you're going to cut through about 3/4 of the length. Having a little trouble with my pizza wheel, it won't turn so much, so to fix that. And then we're just going to go through. It really does help with the pizza wheel if it was working properly, but I seem to be having a problem with it. So again, you can just go through with your knife and then just separate those little pieces. Again, they don't have to be perfect yet. You're going to trim it. Just put a little bit of that powdered sugar on your knife, on your paring knife or your pizza wheel, and that helps. I'm just separating it out and putting a little bit of powdered sugar or cornstarch on there. And at the end, we'll trim. So don't worry. Right now, it looks more like an octopus than anything else. So we'll wrap that up, and then we're going to roll out some more white and just put this on the side. This is going to be for the braid. So it's just a long snake, I guess about 8 inches. But again, we're going to trim that. So, and here I'm going to work on the red portion of the tassel and basically do the same thing. I got a different pizza cutter. This one's working much better. And you get nice thin lines with this. You could do thicker ones. You don't have to do them so thin. You may still have to go through and separate some of those lines because it is, again, the red, it's very saturated in color, so it is a little bit sticky. So I just have a little bit of powdered sugar that I'm putting along the tassels so that they don't stick together. Then we're going to place, oh, I still got a little bit more there. We're going to place one on top of the other. And again, this is however you'd like to do it. These little pieces are probably a little too dry. I don't know if you'd want to keep them. You don't want to ruin the rest of your leftover fondant. So now we have 2 pieces of the tassel. I'm going to go ahead and do the other red band for or snake
the red portion of the braid
for the tassel. We just want to make sure they're the same size, same length. And again, they're about 6 to 8 inches. Just trim those a little bit. If you use I use a pastry flat scraper, a bench scraper, in order to make them nice and even. You just kind of roll back and forth on it with a little bit of the powdered sugar, and it makes a nice, long, smooth snake. Or you're going to then twist them together, just very lightly. Just kind of hold it up and let them twist together. You could do a braid if you'd like to do 3 of them. You could do 3 colors, and then you're just going to pinch the ends and trim them off. Again, that can all be reused as long as it's not dry. Now you're going to take your tassel, which you've somewhat trimmed, your 2 pieces, sorry I went out of camera view, and just squeeze them together a little bit. You can put a little bit of water in there, but at this point I don't think you need the water. Then you could take your rolling pin and just kind of push them together, and that should be good enough. You'll trim a piece off. You're going to use that piece yet, so just put that off to the side. And again, straighten out those ends and then trim it so that they're all nice and even. I use a straight edge just so I have a nice edge. Then I take the braid and I wrap the tassel around it. And again, just squeeze it there you can put a little bit of water on it to help it adhere. And then that other piece that I had on the end, I'm just going to wrap it around. And here's where you might need a little bit of water to dab onto there. You could use your finger or you could use a little paintbrush to just put that on there. Give it a little squeeze just to keep it there. And then I'm going to do the little button that would go up on the top. So at this point, you're just going to put this off to the side, and you definitely want to keep it covered in plastic. As I explained earlier, I had a little bit of a problem with the other one drying out a little bit too fast. So if you have this that happened to me, just pop that little tassel end in there. You could put a little bit of water to help it stick, and that's what I did. Just a little toothpick with the tiniest bit of water. Pop that in there. You can push that tassel underneath, and no one will ever know that you had an issue with your tassel. Okay, so we'll put that off to the side. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to roll out the scroll. So you want to take a piece of white, got a little bit of black fondant or red fondant in there, just pull it out with a paring knife. So now we're going to take the white and we're going to roll it out into a nice thin, very thin piece, probably about 5 inches, 5 to 6 inches. I would go more along the lines of rolling it out to 6 inches and then trimming it down to 5 inches. And this piece of fondant, we are going to get very thin because we want it to look like paper. So we will trim all of that. And then we're going to just take the edges so that we want them nice and even, get that raw edge off of there. You want it nice, crisp end piece of paper. Then you're going to take that one end, the end you don't like as much, there's always one end you don't like as much, and you're going to just roll it in. And as you go, take your rolling pin and get the outside edge now even thinner. And it's very forgiving at this point, so you could just smooth it out if you have a problem. And we're going to keep rolling. And now, since you want it to look like a scroll, you just want to take the edges and just kind of pinch them a little bit. You could add a little water so you can keep it closed. Roll it up. And then kind of pull out the edges so that it looks like paper that has been rolled up and maybe is folding out a little bit. Gives it a very realistic look. Then you take whatever color, your secondary color, in this case for me it was red, and we're just going to roll out a thin strip that's going to go right around the center of that so that it looks like the ribbon that goes around the scroll. Nice and even on the sides. And then I'm just going to cut out a little V on the end. It gives a nice little professional finish. Make sure your edges are not raw. Do the same to the other side. And now this is very thin, so you have to be very careful with it, but make sure those raw edges are definitely tucked in. Carefully take your scroll and then just fold that band around and put a little bit of water on the scroll. Watch that the red doesn't transfer onto the white scroll though. And then you may want just a little button or something to go in the center of that. And then whoop, put a little bit of water because it's getting a little bit dry. It was a dry day when I was working on this. Okay, just tap that in there. You can even just, I use a tip of a knife just to put a couple of little marks in it so it looks different from the ribbon, as if it were some type of button. And then carefully, because it is very delicate, don't worry about it if you have to do it more than once. They are very delicate. We're going to put that off to the side. And then the next thing I'm going to work on is a little banner that you can put your graduate's name or the year or the school, whatever you like. I'm rolling this out so it's not exactly straight, that it does have a little bit of a curve to it, using my pizza cutter to get a nice sharp edge. And I didn't want this super straight because I wanted to be a little bit wavy, like it's a satin ribbon. So you're just going to clean up both sides. And then I'm going to do that same V cut on the ribbon that I did on the red ribbon. It just gives it a nice finish. Clean up those edges because it can look a little raw. Oh, sorry about my arm in the way. Clean up the edges again, and then we're going to put this off to the side as well. As you can see, we can then, now that it's not perfectly even, it's easier to, once you write on it, and then move it onto your cake board or onto the cake, however you like it. It'll have more of a natural flow to it. Okay, we are ready to go now with our, going to cover our cake. So we're going to put a lot of powdered sugar down. We're going to measure the cake so that we know that we're going to have a large enough piece of fondant. So now you're going to take the rest of your black fondant, give it a nice knead, and then again roll it out from the center. And you want it to be just about what the width was if you want to add the two sides and the top of the cake. Depending on how much buttercream you put in the cake, how thick your cakes are, and how much you trimmed it will determine how large. You want to make sure that you have it all the way around. I believe I did it about 12 inches. And just keep making sure you have the nice side. Pull your cake out. Lift your fondant very carefully. You could do it over a rolling pin if that helps. And then you're going to place as evenly as you can. You're going to place that over the cake. You want to make sure that it is even all the way around. Then starting from the top, this is going to take a little time, but starting from the top, you're going to start smoothing the buttercream and pulling the outside of the fondant away from the cake. Otherwise, you'll get it all bunched up at the bottom. So again, you got to take your time with this. Of course, I'm going to speed it up because it took a lot longer. However, you can't go too fast in real life. But again, just smooth, turn. You can trim the excess off so that it doesn't pull down any further because the weight of the fondant may pull it down. Again, just pulling away from the bottom and smoothing and lifting, not even pulling actually. I keep saying pulling, but it's lifting and smoothing. It does take a lot of time. You could use a turntable, that might be helpful. I'm putting a little vegetable shortening on my fingers just to help with it if it gets too dry, and then trim as you go so it doesn't again get too heavy and pull down. If you do have a little bit of a problem where it splits, you can actually take the fondant, mix it with a bit of water so it makes a paste, and kind of just fill in the areas that you have that have hopefully it's not too many. You can also put a decoration over where it does split. Then you want to take either your pizza cutter or your paring knife and go nice and close, kind of cutting in at an angle. Now that fondant you really can't use anymore because it does have buttercream in it and you would ruin the rest of your fondant. So you're going to take the dull side of your knife and just kind of go around and tuck everything in nice and neat. Make sure it's attached by just rubbing a little bit. Just the warmth of your hand will attach that. That little spot there is what I was talking about, that you can make that little patch. Any type of smoother, if you have it. If not, you don't need a smoother. I just went over it with a smoother just to even it out. After it sits for a bit, you now want to just smooth it down one more time. You want to press down that area that the top of the cap is going to sit on. Right there, place a little buttercream. I fuss with it quite a bit. That buttercream is going to be your glue for the top of the cap. So then you're going to take your cap, any powdered sugar off that may be on there. Just place it on, and you may have to hold it for a few minutes. Now I did the point straight up so that the tassel falls off to the side nicely, but you could do it, you could put that top on any way you'd like. If you wanted to put it a little bit off center, that's fine as well. But you may just have to hold that a few minutes and then it'll be fine. We had a little problem with the tassel, as I talked about earlier, and the video. So here I just put the tassel on again with just a tiny bit of buttercream underneath the end, and then the buttercream under the button. Also, underneath the tassel, I placed a small glass upside down to hold that tassel so the weight wasn't too heavy until it completely dried, and then it'll kind of stand on its own. And that should only take about an hour or so. But just take a toothpick and clean up. I put a little too much buttercream, so I just want to carefully clean that up so it looks nice and neat. Yeah, there's that glass I was talking about with that tassel on there. And your scroll, you can figure out where you would like things and move them around quite a bit. Once you write on your ribbon, whatever you'd like to write, you can then place it again with a little bit of buttercream and then your scroll and put that on there. If you enjoyed this video, if you'd like to do this kit, you can order it on candylandcrafts.com. Please send us your pictures, your comments, anything you have, any questions you have. We'll be happy to help you. Thank you again, and congratulations, graduates of 2020.